When you look at a market chart, what are you really seeing? I mean, you see the price going up, you see it going down, basically a map of where it's already been. But what if I told you there's a whole other layer of information hidden in there? A real-time story that's unfolding inside each and every one of those price bars. Well, that's the story of order flow. And trust me, it's about to change how you see the market forever.
Okay, so look at this. On the right, we've got the good old candlestick chart. We all know it. It's clean, it's simple. And on the left, whoa, that's an order flow chart. It looks like some kind of complex matrix, right? But inside all those numbers, that's where the real story is. That's the moment-by-moment battle between buyers and sellers. So what secrets is it trying to tell us?
Here's a pretty tough stat to swallow. Something like 95% of traders end up losing money. Now, why is that? A lot of the time, it's because they're relying on indicators that are just based on price, which honestly only shows you a tiny piece of what's actually going on. They're missing all the crucial context.
And that brings us to the fundamental problem with traditional charts. They are great at showing us the effect. The price went up, but they don't show us the cause. They don't show the real-time fight between buyers and sellers that made that price move in the first place.
Think of it like this. A standard chart is like just reading the final score of a football game. You know who won, but you have no idea how the game was actually played. You don't know where the momentum shifted or which side was playing more aggressively. You basically missed the entire story of the game.
So how do we get to see the why? Well, that's where order flow comes in. And look, it's not just another indicator. It's a completely different way of looking at things. You could almost call it an X-ray for the market. It lets you look inside the price bars and see the raw forces of supply and demand duking it out.
So what is it exactly? Well, order flow analysis is basically a visual map of the actual volume being traded. It shows us precisely how many contracts are being sold at the bid price versus how many are being bought at the offer price. It's not trying to predict the future, it's just giving us a perfect record of what's happening right this second.
And right here, this is the crucial difference. A traditional chart shows you the path that's already been traveled, but an order flow chart, it reveals the actual battle that's creating that path. It's like the difference between finding footprints in the snow and watching the person make them one by one.
All right, so you're probably looking at that complex chart and thinking, okay, great, but how on earth do I even begin to read that? It's actually way more straightforward than it looks. Let's break down exactly how you can decode these market footprints.
Now here's the key. The one thing you have to remember. You don't read an order flow chart straight across, left to right. You read it diagonally. The numbers on the left, that's the volume of sellers hitting the bid price. The numbers on the right, that's buyers hitting the offer price. We compare them diagonally to see who's being more aggressive.
Let's boil that down into 4 simple steps. First, just pick a single price level. Second, look at the selling volume on the bid. Third, look at the buying volume on the offer. That's one price level up from the bid you were just looking at. And fourth, you compare those two numbers diagonally. That single comparison tells you everything you need to know about who was more aggressive in that instant. Was it the buyers or the sellers? Okay, so now we know how to read the numbers. But what are we actually looking for? This is the fun part. This is where we go from just reading data to actually finding the story, to uncovering the clues that the market is leaving behind for us.
I mean, we've all seen this on a chart a million times, right? The price is moving along nicely, and then, boom, it just stops on a dime and reverses. And it can feel completely random. But order flow lets us ask the real question. What was actually happening inside that candle to make it turn?
So here it is. This is that same reversal, but now we're looking at it through the order flow lens. That area highlighted at point B, that's what's called a stacked imbalance. It's where you have 3 or more price levels in a row where sellers were just overwhelmingly aggressive. They basically created an invisible wall of supply that the buyers just could not break through. It's not magic, it's a visible, data-driven clue that sellers were running out of steam.
In A, stacked imbalances are just one of the clues. Traders are also looking for single buying or selling imbalances that show a sudden surge of aggression. They're looking for something called absorption, which is when a huge player is basically acting like a giant sponge, soaking up all the pressure without letting the price move. And they can even spot trapped traders, people who are now stuck in a bad position and are forced to get out, which can actually fuel the next big move.
So what's the bottom line here? What does all this add up to? Well, it's a fundamental shift in how you look at the market. You're moving away from trying to guess what the market is going to do based on lagging indicators, and you're moving toward reading what the market is doing right now.
And that's really the core takeaway here.
The goal is not to find some magical, holy grail system that's just going to tell you when to buy or sell. The goal is to develop the skill of interpretation, to learn how to read the market's own story, written in its own language of volume and price.
You know, there's an old Japanese saying that just captures this perfectly. Consult the market about the market. All it means is that you should be paying super close attention to what the market movement itself is telling you, rather than getting swayed by all the outside noise. And order flow? It's the most direct way to do just that.
So let me leave you with this question. In your own trading, are you just following signals and taking trades? Or are you actually learning to truly read the market? Because deep down inside all those numbers, there's a story just waiting to be told.